Chapter 1, let's rewind a bit, just for clarity. Mark and I met at a paint and sip event. I was there for the wine, he was there for the free paint. He called my painting abstract nonsense, and I told him his beard looked like a sponge. True love bloomed immediately. For 11 chaotic months, we dated. I laughed at his dry jokes, cooked for him, helped him write his CV, which he still hasn't used, and pretended not to notice that he flirted with his female barber more than necessary. In return, he gave me half-eaten meat pies and one hoodie that didn't smell too weird. And then came the night I was feeling particularly girlfriend-y. I wore perfume behind my ears and even shaved my legs, both of them. I was ready for romance. I arrived at his house, greeted his mother, who still called me dear even though my name is Clara, and made my way upstairs to the room he sent me, except he forgot to mention it was his brother's room. Now, I'd seen Henry before. Briefly. Tall, brooding, always wearing suits like he was on the cover of GQ. He barely spoke. The one time I said, "Hi," he nodded like a king acknowledging a commoner. When I opened that door, I expected Mark and a Netflix account. Instead, I got the human version of a Greek god. Shirtless. Reading a book. Hardcover, not even Kindle, and me? I stood there like a malfunctioning robot. All systems fried. He looked up slowly and said, "Close the door. You're letting mosquitoes in." Still, I didn't move. Are you mute or just confused? That snapped me back. I squeaked, "I'm supposed to be here." "You sure?" He raised a brow. "This your usual method of breaking into bedrooms?" I finally held up my phone. "Your brother told me to come." He stood, walked over, and looked at the message. His lips twitched. "Mark is an idiot." "Oh, good, you agree," I said, before realizing I had just insulted his brother. He smiled slightly. "You can sit." I was watching a documentary on crocodiles. "Sounds romantic," I muttered, but I sat anyway. The duvet was fluffy. The air smelled like expensive cologne and eucalyptus. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to shrink myself. Henry handed me the remote and went back to reading, and just like that, we existed. Peacefully. No drama. No weird comments. No telling me to tone it down. I stayed for 45 minutes. Just enough time for Mark to text, "Did you get to the room?" Smiling face with hearts, "Oh, I got there, and your brother just offered me plantain chips." Game on. Chapter 2, it was only a few hours after my accidental stay in Henry's room when I got a call. The phone screen lit up with Mark's name, and I frowned. We hadn't exactly parted on the best terms. He texted me to ask if I made it to his room yet, which was, of course, his brother's room. I sighed, rolling my eyes. Did he really think I'd fall for that? But then it happened. I answered the phone, and instead of hearing Mark's voice, I heard laughter. Mark and his friends, laughing about something that I waited, confused. Did he dial me by accident? And then I heard his voice? Yeah, I'm totally sending her to Henry's room. That way, when he rejects her, I'll have the perfect excuse to dump her. I'm just tired of the clinginess, man. It's been like 11 months, and she's still asking to meet my mom every week. Can you believe it? Every week. It's like she thinks we're some kind of serious couple or something. I froze. Did he just say he was planning to dump me? I clutched the phone tighter, heart thumping. Mark's voice carried on, not realizing the disaster he was about to create. Honestly, I'm just looking for a good excuse to get out of this. So when Henry turns her down, I'll swoop in and be the good guy who's here to comfort her. All while I give her the whole, "we're just not on the same page" spiel. He let out a chuckle. I mean, she's sweet, but she's not that sweet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was a joke. I was the girl he was planning to humiliate just to get rid of me. I had to stifle my laugh because I knew what I had to do next. With the phone still pressed to my ear, I made sure to speak up. "You know, Mark, you're really bad at keeping secrets. Like, I can practically hear the sound of your friendship circling the drain as we speak." There was a pause on the other end. Then, Mark's voice faltered. "See, Clara? How long have you been listening?" "Long enough to hear your master plan." Honestly, I thought I'd get the whole "we need to talk" speech, but sending me to your brother's room to get rejected? That's next level petty. It's almost impressive. I could hear his friends laughing in the background, clearly unsure what to do now that I'd caught him. Clara, look, it's not like that. I was just trying to, take the easy way out. Oh, I know, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You've always liked taking the easy way out. Like that time you made me chase you for a month before finally agreeing to be my official boyfriend. Classic move, Mark. There was silence on his end, followed by a nervous chuckle. It's not like that, Clara, I swear. Okay, you're right. I cut him off. Let's break up. It's probably for the best anyway, because now I'm going to be your sister-in-law. There was a stunned silence on the other end. What? Mark stammered. Wait, are you serious? You're actually, I'm serious. I'm sure Henry will be thrilled to know we're getting married. Or maybe I'll just make it a surprise for everyone. And with that, I hung up, a smug smile spreading across my face. I wasn't just walking away from Mark, I was upgrading myself. Chapter 3, I sat there, still holding my phone in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. Mark's dumb plan to break up with me by sending me to his brother's room to get rejected? He definitely hadn't expected me to turn the tables so quickly. I sat there, lost in my thoughts. I heard a soft chuckle from across the room. I looked up to see Henry, leaning casually against the doorframe, his arms crossed. His intense gaze was fixed on me, but there was a spark of amusement in his eyes. He'd been listening in on my phone call. Henry started, his voice low and smooth. I really didn't expect that from you. I blinked, still a bit in shock. What, the part where I turned the tables on your brother? No, he said with a shrug. I meant the part where you basically volunteered to be my future wife. I froze, and for a second, I swear my brain went blank. What? I stammered, blinking rapidly. What do you mean by that? Henry stepped away from the doorframe, walking toward me with that same unreadable expression. He stopped right in front of me, his presence commanding yet somehow comforting. I heard you on the phone with Mark, he said, his voice soft but direct. I get that you're upset with him. Honestly, after hearing that little conversation, I'd be pretty annoyed too. But you're saying you're done with him, huh? I hesitated. Well, yeah, I'm done. He's been using me as a prop in his little drama, and I'm not about to stick around for that. He can go find someone else to play his games with. Henry nodded, his lips twitching as if trying to suppress a smile. Fair enough. But what about us? What if I wanted to take you up on that future wife offer? My heart skipped a beat. Was he serious? Wait, I said, still trying to catch up. Are you joking, or? Henry chuckled at my confusion, the sound rich and deep. Do I look like I'm joking? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. You just heard everything and now you're saying you want me to be your wife? He shrugged nonchalantly, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Why not? Mark doesn't deserve you. And I'm pretty sure you'd be a lot better off with me than with him. So, what do you think? Want to skip all the drama and get straight to being my wife? I blinked, still processing his words. Henry, you can't just ask me to marry you like this. I mean, we haven't even, you're right, he interrupted, his voice teasing. I didn't give you a chance to fall in love with me first. I'm sure that's a little unfair, but I'm offering you a chance for something real. Something better than whatever you had with Mark. I crossed my arms, narrowing my eyes. So you just think I'm going to drop everything and marry you just because you say so? Henry leaned closer, his expression serious now. I think you should marry me because you know I'm right. And you're not just getting rid of Mark, you're upgrading to me. A small laugh escaped me, but I couldn't help it. Is that really how you sell yourself? Asterisk, I'm an upgrade. Works for me, he said with a grin. So, what do you say, Clara? Want to make it official? I stood there, my mind racing. This was crazy. Insane, even. But somehow it felt right. Maybe not in the conventional sense, but definitely in the now sense. All right, I said slowly, a grin tugging at the corner of my lips. Let's do it. But I'm picking the wedding cake. Henry's face lit up with approval. Deal. And it better be red velvet. I have standards, you know. Red velvet it is, I replied, the excitement bubbling up inside me. Maybe this was sudden, but it felt like the beginning of something unpredictable and real. Chapter 4: The moment Henry and I made that little deal about red velvet cake, I felt like the universe had tilted slightly off its axis. There was no way we had just decided to get married. Like, seriously? This wasn't a rom-com, and I certainly wasn't the quirky lead who jumped into marriage after a few moments of banter. And yet, here we were. I sat back down on the bed, trying to process everything that had just unfolded. Henry, however, seemed perfectly at ease, as if we'd just made the most natural decision in the world. You're not freaking out? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Henry looked at me like I'd just asked the most absurd question. Why would I? I already told you, I'm offering you a better deal than Mark did. No games, no drama, just the wedding. You're not going to back out now, are you? Not back out, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. It's fast, and we don't even really know each other that well. He shrugged, a mischievous glint in his eye. We'll figure it out. Besides, you and I both know Mark wasn't going to work out anyway. I'm giving you a chance at something real. That last part made me pause. Real? Was this real? Was I really that desperate for a change? Or was this just a really wild way to get over a broken heart? I didn't have an answer right away, but I knew one thing. This was certainly not how I expected my life to go when I woke up this morning. The next few days passed by in a strange, surreal blur. There were phone calls to make, logistics to figure out, and a wedding to plan. For a wedding that wasn't even supposed to happen in the first place. I should have been panicking, right? Calling off the crazy idea and running for the hills. But instead, I found myself actually looking forward to it. There was something exciting about it all, something thrilling in the madness of the situation. And Henry, well, he made everything feel oddly smooth, as if this was all just part of a plan we'd both agreed on from the start. The one thing that kept running through my mind was how Mark would react. He had no idea about the plans I'd made, and I had a feeling he wouldn't be too pleased when he found out. But then again, screw him. I wasn't Mark's pawn anymore. That night, as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, I saw the dreaded text. It was from Mark. Hey, so I've been thinking about our talk. Can we meet tomorrow? I still want to try to make things work. I chuckled darkly to myself before tapping out a quick response. Sorry, Mark. It's too late for that. I've already moved on. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The weight lifted off my shoulders instantly. I felt free, and that's when I heard Henry's voice just behind me. So, you finally did it, huh? I turned around to find him standing in the doorway, arms crossed, his smile both smug and satisfied. You know, he said, stepping closer, I think Mark's going to have a hard time dealing with the fact that his brother just swooped in and stole his girl. I laughed. If you could call me that. But yeah, I'd love to see his face when he finds out. Henry raised an eyebrow. You really don't have any second thoughts, do you? Nope. I grinned. I'm in. But I do have one question. He tilted his head, intrigued. And what's that? I leaned in a little, lowering my voice. What's it like being that guy? The one who swoops in and steals the girl from under his brother's nose. Henry paused for a moment, then let out a chuckle. You're already asking the hard questions, huh? I crossed my arms, mirroring his posture. I want to know what I'm getting myself into, Henry. He gave me a long, searching look before answering, his voice softening. It's not as complicated as it sounds. You're going to be my wife. We'll figure out the rest as we go. For some reason, that simple statement made my heart race. I didn't know what this marriage would look like or where it would lead, but in that moment, I knew that whatever happened next would be a ride I'd never forget. Chapter 5: The days following our impromptu wedding decision were a whirlwind of activity. Henry and I went full speed ahead with planning, and as crazy as it was, I found myself oddly at peace with it. For the first time in ages, I felt like I was actually in control of my own life. I wasn't being pushed around. I wasn't playing someone else's game. I was the one who decided what came next, and honestly, it felt good. Really good, but of course, as any wild decision goes, There was always someone who had to spoil the FU, and it was the day before our wedding, and I was using the word loosely here as it was more of a spontaneous, let's go to the courthouse and sign some papers kind of deal. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through wedding magazines Henry had mysteriously ordered for me when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced at the screen and saw it was from Mark. Clara, we need to talk. I know we left things messy, but I'm serious. I want to work things out. Please meet me at 4 p.m. I scoffed, shaking my head. Seriously? After everything, Henry, who had been pacing around the living room and preparing for the next day's chaos, stopped when he noticed me staring at my phone. What's going on? He asked, his tone sharp but curious. Mark, I said, holding up the phone. He wants to meet. Again. To talk things out. Henry's face didn't betray much of a reaction, but I could see a flicker of something in his eyes. He looked protective. And are you going? I shrugged nonchalantly, but I couldn't hide the small part of me that was a little intrigued. Not sure. Should I? Henry stepped over to me, grabbing my phone and tossing it onto the couch before kneeling in front of me. His eyes were serious now, the playful banter gone. Clara, you don't owe him anything anymore. This marriage, whatever it is, it's real. You don't need to go back to the guy who never saw you for who you really are. I didn't know why, but his words struck me. He's right. The last thing I needed was to sit down with someone who had never treated me as anything but a convenience. And I just decided that my future wasn't tied to someone who couldn't even get their act together. No, I guess I don't, I said slowly, placing my hand over his as he was still holding my knee. You're right. I'm done with him. Henry gave me a satisfied smile. Good. You'll be fine. I'll be right here. By 4 p.m., I was sitting at a local cafe, nerves bubbling up in my stomach, waiting for Mark to show up. My mind kept circling back to the phone conversation I'd overheard. Henry had been right. I didn't owe Mark anything anymore. But did that mean I was ready to close the door for good? The sound of the cafe door chiming pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up to see Mark walking in. He was exactly the same. Still wearing that same cocky grin. Still holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, I would go back to him. Clara, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. You look different. I smiled sweetly, though I could feel the familiar frustration bubbling under my skin. Thanks. It's probably the fact that I'm no longer an emotional punching bag. He blinked, clearly thrown off. I don't understand. Why are you being like this? I thought we had something real. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. We did. But it turns out you were never really interested in me. You just wanted someone to play along with your little drama. I'm done with that, Mark. I'm done with you. Mark's face twisted with disbelief. But we were supposed to be together. I was going to make everything right. You don't have to do this. I shook my head, a feeling of finality creeping in. I already have someone who treats me the way I deserve. And his name is not Mark. Mark stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and then, as if a switch had flipped, he stood up. Fine, he said, turning to leave. You've made your choice. Just remember, this isn't over. I'll be back for you. But before he could leave, I called out, just so you know, I'm not coming back. Ever. I felt a strange sense of relief when the door closed behind him. It was over. For good, and as I walked out of the cafe, I knew something had changed inside me. I had let go of Mark, finally. And the person who was waiting for me, who really saw me, was Henry. Chapter 6. The day after I'd finally cut ties with Mark, I found myself sitting on the couch in Henry's apartment, nervously flipping through a magazine that had somehow ended up in my lap. It was full of wedding ideas, colors, and themes, but right now, none of that felt important. My mind kept drifting back to last night and the way Henry had looked at me. The way he had made me feel like I was the most important thing in his world. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe I should have been second-guessing everything. But I wasn't. Henry stepped into the living room with a grocery bag in hand. I glanced up and gave him a half smile. What did you get? Just some stuff for dinner, he said casually, setting the bag on the counter. I thought we could cook together. Together? I raised an eyebrow. You know, cooking isn't exactly my specialty. He chuckled, his voice low and comforting. Oh, trust me, I'm not some chef. I just want us to do something normal. You know, to celebrate. I couldn't help but smile. Celebrate what exactly? Us getting married in a few days. Well, yeah. He gave me a wink, leaning against the counter as he opened the fridge. But mostly, I just want to spend time with you. No distractions. Just us. That made my chest feel warm. Just us. That was what I'd always wanted. I stood up, walking over to him. All right, what are we making? Pasta. It's easy, he said, pulling a box of spaghetti out of the cupboard. And I might have picked up some extra garlic bread. Because who doesn't love garlic bread? Fair enough, I said, grabbing the other ingredients he laid out on the counter. You might be onto something here. As we cooked, our conversations flowed easily. I found myself laughing more than I had in a long time. Henry was funny, but not in the way most people were. He wasn't trying to be, he just was. He didn't need to be the life of the party to get me to smile. He had this quiet way of making everything seem less serious, less complicated. So I asked, stirring the sauce as he chopped some veggies, how did you end up living in this place? I figured someone like you would have, I don't know, a penthouse or something. Henry snorted, glancing at me. A penthouse? Hardly. I like my space, but I'm not about the whole showy thing. Besides, I like it here. It's quiet. And I get to have dinner with you. I paused, catching his eye. You're really making this whole. We're married now. Things sound like a good idea. He grinned, leaning back against the counter, arms crossed. That's the plan. I'm a man of simple tastes, Clara. But really, it's not just the marriage. It's you. I like being with you, getting to know you. I felt my cheeks flush a little, but I didn't back down. You're not bad yourself. He stepped closer, a playful smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. I'm really glad you think so. You're making it easy. Yeah? I teased, stirring the pasta a little faster. Well, you're lucky I'm willing to give you a chance. You've got one more chance to impress me with that garlic bread. Challenge accepted. Henry made a show of cracking his knuckles, and I couldn't help but laugh. Dinner came together nicely, and we sat down at the table together, both of us too focused on the food to make any more jokes. It wasn't awkward, though. It was comfortable. Natural. The way it felt being around Henry, it didn't feel like we were pretending to be something we weren't. So I said after a few bites, setting my fork down, "What happens after the wedding?" Henry paused, looking at me thoughtfully. Well, we'll be legally married. I guess we could go on a honeymoon? Or we could stay here and continue figuring out what this actually means. I raised an eyebrow, feeling the weight of his words. You're not worried about it being too fast? Too much. He gave me an honest look. I'm not worried. I'm just not going to rush it. I want us to take things as they come. I couldn't help but smile, feeling more certain about him than I had about anything in a long time. I like that. No pressure. Henry's eyes softened, and he leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. Clara, I don't expect anything from you. I'm not asking you to give me all the answers right now. All I'm asking is that you keep being you. Because the you that's sitting in front of me now, I like her. A lot. That felt like it hit me square in the chest. No one had ever said anything like that to me before, not without some kind of ulterior motive. Anyway, you're serious about this, I said quietly, looking at him through the soft light of the kitchen. I'm not the type to do things halfway, he replied, his voice steady. And I'm definitely not halfway into this. I smiled, the warmth I felt spreading through me. Good, because I'm starting to think this might be something real. Later, we found ourselves on the couch, both exhausted but content. The soft hum of the city outside filled the silence, and for a while, we just sat there, enjoying the moment. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling oddly at peace. You know, I said after a while, my voice barely a whisper, I don't think I ever really thought about what this could be. What this could be. Henry kissed the top of my head, his arms tightening around me. I know. Neither did I. But I'm glad we found out. Together. I smiled softly, closing my eyes. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe it was fast. But with Henry, it felt right. Chapter 7. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window, the soft warmth of the sheets around me, and the unmistakable feeling of someone's arm around my waist. I blinked, my mind still half foggy from sleep, and turned to see Henry lying next to me. He was fast asleep, his face relaxed and calm in a way I'd never seen it before. It was funny. This whole situation had started with a mix of confusion and almost desperation. But now, it felt easy. Comfortable. As quietly as I could, I slid out of bed, careful not to wake him. He stirred for a moment, but didn't wake up, and I felt a small smile tug at my lips as I pulled on some clothes. I went into the kitchen to start making coffee. The smell of fresh brewing coffee always had a way of waking me up better than anything else. Henry joined me a few minutes later, rubbing his eyes and wearing that adorable, sleep-rumpled look. Morning, he mumbled, his voice deep with sleep. He yawned, making his way over to the counter. Coffee? Definitely coffee, I replied, filling up 2 mugs and handing him one. We sat at the table in companionable silence for a few minutes, sipping our coffee. It was that comfortable kind of quiet, the kind that told me things were starting to settle into something real. So Henry started, looking over at me. What's the plan for today? I paused, setting my mug down. Plan? Yeah, you know. What are we doing? We're married now. We should probably start figuring out what that looks like. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't really thought about it beyond the whole let's get married thing. What came after, I guess. I don't know, I admitted. I was kind of hoping we could just go with the flow. Figure it out together, like we've been doing. He smiled at me, and I could see that twinkle in his eyes, the one that made my stomach flip. I like that idea. Going with the flow, seeing where this thing takes us. Together. I could feel my heart race a little. The more he said things like that, the more real it all felt. The more it made sense. A couple of hours later, we found ourselves walking around the city, taking in the sights and enjoying each other's company. We went to a little bakery Henry recommended, picked out some pastries, and sat on a park bench while we ate. So I said, picking at the crust of my croissant, what was it like growing up in a big family? Henry raised an eyebrow, glancing over at me. You mean, what was it like to have siblings who would steal your clothes, eat your food, and beat you at every game? I laughed, nodding. Exactly. It was loud, he admitted with a small laugh. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. There was always someone to talk to, always something going on. It was never boring. I bet, I said thoughtfully, looking around the park. I don't know what that's like. I was an only child. Henry gave me a curious look. That's gotta be strange. I mean, no one to share things with, no one to annoy you. I shrugged. I guess. But it also meant I didn't have anyone trying to steal my stuff or distract me when I needed quiet. He chuckled, turning his body toward me. I can see that. But I'll admit, having a family means you've got backup. Someone always has your back. That made me think about how much I didn't have that growing up, how much I'd longed for it. And here I was, married to a guy who seemed to have all that and more. You're lucky, I said, my voice a little quieter than usual. Having that kind of support. It must have been nice to always have someone there. Henry reached out and took my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. And now you've got it, too. You're part of the family now. I felt a warm rush flood through me, and it wasn't from the sun above. It was his words, simple as they were, and the way they made me feel like maybe I wasn't as alone in this world as I thought I was. We sat in comfortable silence for a few more minutes, both lost in our thoughts. But as the day went on, I realized something important. It wasn't about what came next. It was about the fact that we were doing this together. It was about him, about me, and about everything that came after. Later, when we got back to the apartment, Henry sat down on the couch, pulling me down beside him. You know, he started. his voice light but serious. "I've been thinking about this whole thing. I know it's still new, and we've still got a lot to figure out. But I don't want to screw this up. I want to make sure I do this right." I looked up at him, not sure what he meant. "Do what right?" "The us part," he clarified, his thumb brushing across my knuckles. "I know we're technically married, but it's more than that. I want to be the kind of guy you deserve. I want to give you the best I can." I blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his eyes. "Henry, you're already doing that. You've already done more than I could have imagined." He smiled, the corners of his lips turning up in that familiar, charming way. "Well, I'm not stopping now." We spent the rest of the afternoon in a haze of contentment, laughing at silly things, talking about our favorite movies, and discussing everything from breakfast preferences to dream vacations. I realized that it wasn't just the big, dramatic moments that made this feel real. It was the little things, the way he cared, the way he listened, the way he made me feel like I mattered. And the more time I spent with him, the more I found myself thinking, maybe this whole thing was more than just a spontaneous decision. Maybe it was exactly what I needed all along. Chapter 8. The days seemed to fly by after that. Henry and I had settled into a comfortable routine, one that wasn't rushed or overwhelming, but something that felt like it was building into something more. We'd talked about the wedding, of course. And while we both agreed that it wasn't going to be the big extravagant affair most people imagined, we still wanted it to be special, just for us. We'd invited a few close friends, and after some debating, decided to keep it simple. No big ceremony, no crazy wedding planner. Just Henry, me, and a small group of people who meant the most to us. The evening before the wedding, I found myself sitting on the couch in Henry's apartment, my nerves creeping up on me. It felt real now. The moment was practically here. I was so caught up in my own thoughts that I didn't notice Henry walk in until he was standing right in front of me, Clara. His voice was soft, laced with concern. "You okay?" I blinked, startled by his presence. "Huh? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Just a little nervous, I guess." Henry raised an eyebrow, taking a seat beside me. "About the wedding?" I nodded. "I mean, it's happening tomorrow. I never really thought I'd get married, you know? Not like this. But now that it's real, it's kind of freaking me out." He chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You know, I think I've been more nervous about this than you. But it's not about the wedding itself. It's about us." I gave him a small smile. "Yeah, I guess. It just feels fast. Like 1 minute I'm here, and the next I'm walking down an aisle. But I don't want to back out. I don't know." Henry took my hand in his, squeezing it gently. "Clara, we're doing this our way. No pressure. No rules. Just two people who found something real. And I'm not going anywhere. This is just the beginning." I felt the sincerity in his words. The way he looked at me with such kindness, such honesty, it wasn't something I was used to, but it was everything I needed. "I'm scared too," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm also excited, because I want to do this with you. Every step of the way." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, feeling the weight of my own nervousness start to lift. "You're right. I'm being silly. We've got this, Henry. I trust you." He smiled, leaning in to kiss my forehead. "And I trust you. More than you know." The next day was a blur of activity. Henry and I spent most of the morning getting ready, and it didn't feel as chaotic as I'd imagined it would. Maybe it was because we were doing this together. Or maybe it was because, for once, I didn't feel like I had to be perfect. I didn't have to be the perfect bride, the perfect wife-to-be. I just had to be me. When I walked into the small, cozy venue we'd chosen, I saw the familiar faces of our closest friends. Mark was there too, though he kept his distance after everything that had happened. It was awkward, but I didn't care. This wasn't about him. It wasn't even about the people watching us. It was about Henry and me. As the ceremony started, Henry stood at the altar, his eyes meeting mine across the room. There was no hesitation in his gaze. No second guessing. Just certainty, When I reached him, he took my hand, his grip firm and warm. And as we exchanged vows, simple, heartfelt promises that meant everything, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just the commitment I was making to him. It was the commitment he was making to me too. It was a promise that felt real. Something we were both in this for, together. Later that evening, after the wedding was over and we were back at Henry's apartment, I found myself sitting on the couch again, this time with him beside me. The soft glow of the lights and the quiet of the night made everything feel peaceful. Real. Do you feel different? I asked, my voice a little unsure. Like, now that we're married? Henry grinned, leaning back against the cushions. I do, but in a good way. Like, I've got you now, and I'm not letting go. I laughed softly, feeling my heart flutter at his words. I'm glad, because I don't plan on going anywhere. For a moment, there was just silence between us, a kind of peaceful understanding. He reached out, tucking a lock of hair behind my ear. I'm really glad you're mine, Clara, he said softly. Really glad. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't have the words to explain how I felt, but somehow I didn't need to. I just leaned into him, letting the moment speak for itself. The days that followed felt like a new chapter, one that was both familiar and exciting. As we navigated life as a married couple, we did it the same way we had before. Slowly, steadily, without trying to rush things. There were small moments of laughter, of quiet talks late at night, and of feeling truly content. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't always easy, but it was us. And that was all I ever really wanted. Chapter 9, if I had $1 for every time Mark tried to crawl back into my life, I'd have at least enough to buy a new toaster. Not a fancy one. Just something that toasts both sides evenly, unlike his two-faced personality. It had been 2 weeks since Henry and I got married, and I was genuinely happy. Like, wake up smiling, eat pancakes in bed, dance around the living room happy. Henry made life feel easy in the best way, like we were in a rom-com where the leads actually communicated and no one dramatically left the wedding at the altar. S.O. when I got a text from an unknown number saying, we need to talk. I stared at it for a good minute before deleting it. Was that him again? Henry asked from across the couch, not even looking up from his laptop. I squinted at him. How did you know? He smirked. You make this face. Like you just stepped in something gross and it's talking. I burst out laughing. Wow, you know me too well. Unfortunately for him, Henry added, I also know how to block numbers. Give it here. I passed him my phone with zero hesitation. He typed something in, handed it back, and that was that. Or so I thought. The next day, I went grocery shopping alone because Henry had a meeting and I had a craving for chocolate-covered almonds. That's when I spotted Mark leaning against his car like a rejected shampoo commercial. Clara, he said, as if his voice alone would make me forget he was human garbage. Oh, look. I replied dryly, the ghost of boyfriend's past. He actually smiled, like he thought that was charming. I just wanted to talk. No thanks. I already talked to my therapist about you. Clara, come on, he said, stepping in front of me. I didn't know you'd actually marry my brother. I raised an eyebrow. So, what was your plan? Send me to get humiliated, then swoop in with pity. His silence was the only answer I needed. Mark, I said slowly, let me make this clear. I am not your backup plan, your second option, or your oops, she turned out better than I thought. I married Henry because he's 10 times the man you pretended to be. He blinked. You don't love him. I tilted my head. I didn't plan to, but he showed up for me. And now? I'm lucky I didn't end up with someone as emotionally intelligent as a toaster. Actually, I'm sorry, that's an insult to toasters. Mark opened his mouth to argue, but I'd already pushed past him and walked off, my cart squeaking triumphantly over the pavement. That night, Henry made hot chocolate and wrapped me in a blanket on the couch. So, he said casually, should we send Mark a thank you card? I laughed. You mean for being the worst and accidentally setting me up with the best? Exactly. I leaned into him, grinning. Only if we sign it, from your ex and her husband, who's also your brother. He sipped his drink. Add a photo? Oh, definitely. Chapter 10. Being married to Henry was like signing up for a lifetime of mild chaos and spontaneous kisses, both of which I wholeheartedly approved of. We weren't the kind of couple who posted sappy captions or matching outfits. No, we were the type who bickered about who finished the last cookie while sharing it in the end. A month into marriage, we still hadn't taken a honeymoon. Life got busy, and honestly, I was happy just being with him, anywhere, anytime. Though that didn't stop Henry from randomly announcing one morning, mid-coffee sip, "Pack your bags. We're going to the mountains." I blinked. Is that code for something? Nope. I booked us a cabin. You've been working too much, and I want to watch you fail at hiking again. You mean the last time I tripped on a squirrel? It was a rock, he corrected, grinning, but you screamed like it was a mountain lion. That squirrel was judging me, I swear. He laughed, kissed my cheek, and disappeared to finish the plans. The trip was perfect. We hiked, he hiked, I wheezed, roasted marshmallows, and even had a snowball fight I absolutely did not lose. We also talked. A lot. One night, curled up under a pile of blankets, I found myself staring at him and wondering how I got so lucky. I murmured. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. Henry turned to me, brushing his fingers across my cheek. It's real and permanent. You're stuck with me. Good. I like being stuck. There was a quiet moment where we just looked at each other. Then he smirked. Even if I keep stealing the blanket every night? You don't steal the blanket, I said. You hijack it and leave me to shiver like a sad burrito. He chuckled. Fine. I'll work on it. Husband improvement in progress. I smiled and leaned in. I'll accept payment in kisses. He kissed me. Payment accepted. Epilogue. Happily ever after the drama. A year later, we threw a party. Not for our anniversary, not for anything fancy. Just a hey, we survived marriage without strangling each other. Celebration. All our friends came. Even Henry's mom, who had once asked me with a straight face if I was the mistake Henry adopted. She now hugged me like I was her long-lost daughter. Progress. Mark? He showed up late. I was in the middle of laughing at Henry trying to do a TikTok dance when I saw him lurking by the snack table like a rejected villain. He approached cautiously. Hey, Clara. Henry appeared beside me, draping an arm around my shoulder. Mark. Mark shifted awkwardly. I just wanted to say congrats. You guys look happy. I smiled sweetly. We are. But if you're here to say you've changed, please don't. I'd hate to laugh during the cake cutting. Mark raised his hands. No speeches. Just, I'm glad you're okay. Before I could respond, Henry leaned in and whispered, Want me to accidentally drop a cupcake on him? I grinned. Tempting. But let's just let him watch what real love looks like. And so we did. That night, as the lights dimmed and the music played, Henry pulled me into a slow dance in our living room, surrounded by friends, family, and one very confused Mark that I rested my head on his shoulder. Still glad you married your ex's brother? He teased. I laughed. Absolutely. Best revenge story ever. And it was because sometimes life gives you lemons, and sometimes it gives you a husband who makes you laugh until your stomach hurts and steals all your fries, but gives you his hoodie when you're cold. Guess which one I picked? Exactly.